there was always a lot more emphasis on property and pensions. I think when I was last looking at the wealth in the UK and some of the research, they were talking about, total wealth was about 12 trillion pounds or so, and about 42% is in property. But I think one thing they have given us is opportunity to grow wealth for ourselves.
What I've learned from this so far is generation wealth is not necessarily something tangible that you can touch or you can see. It can also be knowledge that can be passed down to generations, to children, etc. Hey guys, the Sound of Accra podcast. Welcome. My name is Adrian. This is the show we speak of top Ghanaian founders, entrepreneurs and creators worldwide with the aim of leaving behind meaningful takeaways that you can apply to your life, business and career. For today's housekeeping, just want to let you know today's show notes. You can head over to thesoundofaccra.com/Mike Donkor. That's MikeDonkor, right? It's going to be in the podcast description below if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review on your way out. Give us a like if you're watching on YouTube. But let us know what you think of today's episode, and that can determine how much further we can take this relationship with the guest that's in the hot seat today. All right. Now, before I introduce today's guest, I just want to let you guys know, for those of you who've been following the podcast for the past, almost 5 years, you may have noticed that this guest has been on the show previously, virtually. I know because of COVID, that's probably the main reason, but it's fantastic to get him in person. Not only is he fantastic at what he does in terms of financial planning and wealth creation, etc., he's also a friend of mine. He's a member of the Young Ghanaian Professionals community, which, I'm a founding member of, and he's one of the earliest ones as well. And he's just the overall top guy. Mike, it's great to have you in the flesh. Wow.
Good to see you, man.
Welcome to the season. As well. I've upgraded you to the season.
I know. Everyone can see my legs now. I got legs. You know what I mean? It's not just on the screen.
Yeah.
So I exist. I'm a full person.
Yeah.
So no, it's good to see you, man. Good to see you, man.
Shake your hand.
Yeah, man. It's been a while. With
that managing director type suit. I see you got the cup. We're just talking about the cufflinks earlier on that he's wearing.
MD. You got to represent yourself. You got to rep. You got to rep who you are. Your brand and your individuality, I guess, in these kind of things. But yeah, man, I'm always trying to be myself, be authentic, and kind of show people, who I am and what I'm about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once again, it's great to have you in the flesh.
Yeah. Good to see you, man.
It's great to see you, and I think this episode has come around at the perfect time. Although it could have happened previously. Just with this new focus of wealth creation, personal finance and business for this particular season, for this particular theme, you're one of the first names that came on the books in my mind, which is fantastic. And then to see you go on, shout out to Atto, Savvy Wallet, who also came, who's also on the season.
Yes.
He's also on the season, and he interviewed you.
My guy.
And the episode's doing fantastically well,
No, thank you.
Tens of thousands of views. Fantastic, man.
I appreciate it. Just trying to give people as much content information as possible.
Brilliant. Yeah,
man. It's been good. But you could have called me anytime. So I'm here. I'm here. I'm glad I'm here.
You made it. Thank you so much. So, what have you been up to recently?
Been busy. Just with the family, just kind of balancing work and life with the kids getting a bit older and stuff. And as always, constantly trying to evolve and put myself out there, provide some good content and provide some information for people to really think about where they are with their finances and what kind of decisions they want to make for their long-term plans.
Brilliant. No, I love it, man. I love to hear it. I know, just speaking to you off camera, you've been working with some pretty impressive clients, and your portfolio of clients and the brands and the people that you kind of work with has just gotten better and better. I think your diversity and your wealth of experience, no pun intended, has just improved over time, just getting to know you and having you on previous episodes. So for those of you who don't know much about Michael, we dive more into his background and stuff in previous interviews. I'll make sure I leave a link below for those of you who want to dive more deep into that, because we're going to focus more on how technology can be used to leverage, what for wealth creation, can be used as a leverage for wealth creation and as a companion, rather than something that should be used just to completely automate your wealth creation, which isn't necessarily the case, right? So for those of you who don't know Michael, so he's a certified financial planner. He has over a decade experience working in the finance industry. Over the last 6 years as a financial advisor. He's originally from East London, and he helps tech professionals maximize their income so they can grow their money whilst having more fulfilling life experiences. I think I know what question's coming next. Michael, why tech professionals?
Because I'm a tech savvy guy. I really like that space. I always feel like if I wasn't a financial advisor, I'd be working in those kind of roles. My dad worked in IT, network administrator, programmer, stuff like that. And I've always been kind of interested in, the innovative tech space, the newest gadget, the next iPhone, the next Samsung, the next PlayStation, all those kind of things. But then bigger than that, the companies that we're starting to see now that are evolving, the Facebooks of the world, Instagrams, the Spotifys, all these different kind of places, all of these larger companies. And for me, there is a space to potentially help some of these individuals that are navigating their finances, whether it's their income, whether it's their bonuses, whether it's their RSUs, their stock options, and figure out how best to kind of maximize their finances, not just for now, but also for their long-term plans.
Brilliant. I think it's interesting you picking tech. I think in terms of wealth creation, I mean, there's so many verticals and industries. I mean, you've got real estate or property. There's the investment, like stocks and shares and crypto and those types of platforms. But then there's just general technology, right? And I think if you look at the people that built the wealth the most, or maybe the richest people in the world right now, I like to call it old money, new money. So you got old money. If you look at like the Americans, right? If you look at old money, someone like a Warren Buffett, who's built their wealth through, owning companies and compound interest and all sorts of things, and having like a group, right? He's done amazingly well. Shout out to, rest in peace, Charlie Munger as well. One of his running mate, right? But now, in terms of the new money, I see like the Jeff Bezoses, the Elon Musks, who both own technology-based companies and are probably the richest people in the world right now. It's amazing. Having said that, could you talk me through the transition from the old types of wealth creation into new kind of types of wealth creation? So now we're seeing people build wealth using like crypto and stocks and shares and things like that. And then you got more traditional based people who they don't necessarily want to invest in things like that. They don't want to invest in anything that they can't see. I remember I've got a cousin of mine who I remember telling him about something. He was like, I don't invest in anything I can't see. But he's doing really, really well. In terms of wealth, he's doing really, really well. So talk me through your perspective in terms of like, I like to call old money, new money. In terms of wealth creation, you got the old and then you got the new.
Well, I think if you look at wealth back in the day, there was always a lot more emphasis on property and pensions. I think when I was last looking at the kind of the wealth in the UK and some of the research, they were talking about, total wealth was about $12 trillion pounds or so, and about 42%, I think it was about 42% of it is in property.
Wow.
And I think closer to that, the other kind of 40% was in pensions. So property has always been maybe one of the bigger aspects of old money, wealth over time, properties accumulating over time. And, this whole idea of kind of being asset rich and cash poor for some people. And I think things are changing now because people, especially the younger generation, are questioning whether they even want to own a property, and there's a lot of conversation around whether they should be renting as opposed to buying. But also, I think the younger demographic are now thinking about liquidity. And that's one of the risks of investing, liquidity risk, and that's all about being able to access the money. So property is great because it does, or it can accumulate wealth over time. But I think the other side of the coin is whether you're able to access that wealth.
Yeah.
And we're almost seeing that now with the talks of the inheritance tax changes with the farmers as well, that conversation.
It's an interesting one for sure.
Because they're now, I think the conversation is now stemming around the idea that they may have to pay inheritance tax. But if they are asset rich and cash poor, then the question is, where's the money coming from? The question might even be, do they have money? I'm sure they do, but I think people always tie wealth into the idea of having access to using that money. And for some people, wealth itself is a store of value. It's a store of money. I think the real value of having these assets is what you get from it, not pulling from the asset itself, if that makes sense, and diminishing the value of that asset.
Yes, yeah. No, absolutely, yeah, because you could own maybe a part of Apple, right? And it goes up and down in value every day. You may not necessarily be able to pull out cash the next day, but you sure can sell the shares, or the stocks, wherever it is, and then make a ton of money.
Or get dividends.
Right? Or get dividends.
Yeah. And, this is where the investment aspect of things kick in. When they talk about, Warren Buffett receiving, millions and millions of pounds of dividends off some of his shares. The whole reason why he's able to do that is because he's not selling the shares. He's taking the dividends from holding that position. And that's when you can say essentially an investment becomes an asset or a wealth builder over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
On that same topic of where the world is going, we just talked about old money and new money. Old, traditional, still valid ways
Bricks
of wealth
and water,
creation.
just kind of stability.
And then we've talked about a little bit about the new. Where do you see future of financial planning in terms of where it's going? Of course, you're in the industry. Hey, global Ghanaian citizens. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's just a very quick announcement. For today's episode offer, I'd like you to check the link in the description below. This is a special offer that we managed to secure in partnership with one of our guests or one of our partners. So please check the link in the description below for today's episode offer. You'll be able to take advantage of what we have in store for you today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode, and I hope you enjoy the offer. Take care.
In terms of the industry and where it's going, I think right now we're focusing a lot more on kind of transparency, a lot more on client interests. With the consumer duty updates that's been coming in place. And people are, I guess the advisors, I'm thinking that niching is quite important because, I wrote about finding your tribe in my most recent newsletter on LinkedIn called Mike's Moment.
It's fantastic, yeah.
And I think there's now this kind of demand for people to find their tribe and find their community effectively. So I think there's going to be a lot more focus on kind of people, in the advisory space, kind of niching down and figuring out who they want to work with, what kind of clients they want to have on board, and kind of growing their business like that.
Okay. Why is that? Why are people trying to niche down more so now than ever before?
I think the market is starting to pick up in terms of the number of advisors, so are starting to come into the market. But also, I think people are starting to think more about the kind of lifestyle they want to have in this role, and not just about just getting clients for the sake of getting clients. And with that, there comes this idea of who do I actually want to work with, as opposed to just how many clients can I get. So I think there's a shift there, and I think it's a shift due to the younger generation also coming in and thinking a bit more about life experiences and enjoying their life and enjoying the job, enjoy what they want to do. You know, you hear about the great resignation that has been coming. A lot of people are going into jobs and they're going, I don't really want to be here. And then like a couple of months later, they're like, okay, I'm moving. That I think there's a lot of thought process around where you actually want to work, who you want to be around. You know, I think lockdown has taught us a lot of things.
COVID has triggered a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people are being a bit more intentional about who they want to work with, the companies that they want to work for, the values that they believe in, and the environments that they want to put themselves into.
Yeah, I think it's very true, Mike. I think it's very clear, and especially with you, you know, focusing mainly on tech professionals. And then also just mentioning to me earlier on your passion for technology. I think that works very, very well. And just on that topic, right? The kind of clients that you've worked with, right, in the technology space, right? What is it about you that they've said that they've enjoyed working with? And do you have any stories or success stories of working with specific tech professionals in terms of their financial planning?
Got me to toot my own horn a little bit. I should bring a client. And here we have.
Feel free to answer it how you want to.
Yeah, no, I guess it's always from when I've asked.
Yeah.
Because I think it's always important to get some feedback. I'm the kind of person I want to know if I'm doing a good job. I want to know where I can improve. Yeah. And I think for me, it's always been a kind of a personable aspect of things. You know, I think, you know, one of my clients, you know, kind of mentioned the idea of like, it's almost having like that smart cousin that you know, when you got something that you're trying to do and you give your cousin a call and say, hey, I'm thinking about it, what do you think? And then they're like, oh, have you thought about this? Like, it's almost like having that kind of relationship there at times. And also, you know, making not the right decisions, but I guess the optimal decisions for their circumstances. People have said they're quite happy with that as well, because, you know, again, you know, my role as an advisor, as a certified financial planner, it is about helping clients achieve their goals and their objectives through their finances, and doing that through constructing financial plans. So sometimes people come to me with the idea that I just want to set up a pension, or I just want to set up this account. And for me, you know, that's the secondary aspect of it. The primary aspect, I always say the plan is primary, the investment is secondary. That's kind of how I look at it.
The plan is primary, the investment is secondary. Wow, I like that. Okay, so the investment follows the plan, essentially. Yeah. Brilliant. You know, it's almost like, you know, you're in a car and you're trying to reach the destination, you know, but how do you know where to go if you haven't kind of planned out your route? You know, you end up on the wrong road, or you end up in traffic. You know, you haven't really sat down and planned out your route to get to that destination. Well, it's the same with kind of financial advice and financial planning. You know, what is the end goal? What is the result that you're trying to achieve? And a lot of the time, people that come to me, or sometimes the people that I have conversations with, they haven't thought that far ahead. You know, and it's not their fault. I think it just hasn't been a conversation that they've had regularly to kind of start thinking about it from that perspective. Absolutely. I think that probably comes from thinking, it comes from experience, and it comes from just looking at your plans, essentially. Okay, that's quite interesting. So speaking of having a roadmap and understanding where they want to go. Now you're working with tech professionals. What financial mistakes would you say that tech professionals are kind of making at the moment?
I think in terms of the mistakes,
or what are you commonly finding that tech professional, when you know some people that you're working with, what are you commonly finding that tech professionals are, you know, need in terms of financial planning? Like in terms of lack of foundations.
It's more this structure and priority. You know, what is the priority? A lot of the time they've jumped one hurdle and they now are not sure what the next hurdle needs to look like for them to kind of work towards their next goals. You know, they've they've put all of this time and effort maybe into buying a house.
Yeah.
And now that they bought the house, they're like, okay, what do I do next?
Wow.
You know?
Okay.
So, you know, in terms of what they're not doing, they're not sitting down and, you know, ultimately identifying what is the next step, what is actually important to them, what they're trying to achieve, and why. Why are they trying to do this? Because
that's a good point.
You know, there's always this idea of I want more money, which is fine. Everyone wants more money. I want more money, you know. But why? You know, if you had enough money to do what you wanted to do in life, would you still want more?
It's a good question. And
I don't think people have always asked themselves that question. I was speaking to a friend of mine who was a bit more frugal than most people.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of like, I just want to have the bare minimum and just make sure I can cover my bills, cover my costs and everything. And I said, well, no, that's great. That's great. That sounds good. What would the best scenario look like for you? And he hadn't really thought about it. And I think what that, you know, going through that process, he hadn't really thought about what the actual end goal actually looked like. There was more of a scarcity mindset in terms of, I just want to make sure that I just have enough to just cover what I'm doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, what if you just have enough and then there's a problem? What do you do then?
True.
So I think it depends on what you're trying to achieve, and also if you have enough funds in place to achieve that goal.
Yeah. I think I can see what you mean, that some people aren't thinking ahead enough, in the sense of they're not anticipating risks enough.
Yeah.
And they're not considering what ifs.
Yes. You know, my whole space is about the what ifs. You know, half of my conversation about what if, you know, sometimes I feel like I could be a bit pessimistic in this role, but a lot of it is about just getting the client to think about, you know, what the alternative might look like. Have they thought about this? Only because I want to make sure that they've considered all options before they make those decisions. Even if they decide to kind of work with me and, you know, put certain things in place. But it's important to ask those questions, because you just never know what's gonna turn up. And we're seeing it a lot in this space. For example, you know, there's a lot of redundancies that are happening in the tech space every couple of years, which is very frustrating for some clients. And I guess the conversation they need to have is, you know, what if it's them? What does that mean for them? What is their plan? You know, because if they're only waiting until it happens, it just causes a bit of chaos. It can cause a bit of chaos, because they're not going to tell you beforehand, by the way, in 6 months' time, we're probably going to have some redundancies, so you might as well get prepared.
That's a good point. And now you're now starting to paint a picture for me, Michael, in terms of how you specializing in working with tech professionals makes sense, because you're bringing up very, you know, realistic matters which can relate to them. So, for example, there's a lot of tech layoffs. That's one thing we're seeing in the industry. Lots of tech layoffs, lots of tech companies starting, and there's lots of competition, lots of different things. So I think you're bringing some of these matters into these conversations with them, and you're making them think certain things. Yeah,
I think it's important because, you know, they're not always in a position to have this conversation. You know, and usually, again, it's at the point it happens, and you could be having to sort out renovations. You could have just had a child. You know, you could have just bought a house. There's so many different things that could be going on in your life, and then bam, somebody hits you with this, and then it's like, okay, what now? And not everybody gets the opportunity to have that conversation beforehand and say, well, if this was to happen, do we have something in place to make sure that you're okay? Or what would you want to have in place to make sure that you're okay? And that also is a part of the plan. And I think sometimes people forget that building a plan is not just about when everything works, it's about when things don't work.
That's powerful.
I'm trying, man.
We'll let that one sink in.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're focusing this conversation today, Michael, on, you know, how the listeners can leverage tech in terms of wealth creation and building wealth, whether they want to build faster, more effective, better, whatever it is. Now, I think it's clear, you know, what I've learned from you is that you really need to have the basics and foundations in place before you can start looking at technology. Yes, you've got this app coming out which is going to help people, which is fantastic. We'll make sure we'll leave links to the description in the show notes, and when that does come out, we'll probably be in touch with Michael again. And there's lots of apps, lots of platforms out there and technology, but I think it's imperative that there's some basics, some foundations in place in order to set somebody up for financial success or financial planning success. Talk us through, Michael, some of these basics, some of these foundations that people really need to have in place, or what kind of questions they need to be thinking about.
Well, I think, you know, when it comes to the basics, you know, I've done some financial coaching for some individuals, and for me, the basics is always around, do you actually understand your numbers? Do you actually understand how much money you're spending? Because what I've noticed when it comes to budgeting and speaking to clients is they don't actually have a budget. They have a perception of what their budget is supposed to look like, and they focus on that as, this is what I'm actually spending. But really, that is just like, how to put it, that's just like the nicer view of what their finances look like. They're like, yep, I put this in. Oh, this is lovely. This is how much I'm spending on drinks. This is how much I'm spending on travel. This is excellent. Look at my budget. Look how much money I'm going to save. And then they come to the end of the month and they're like, where's all this money gone? And a lot of it's because they are kind of forecasting what they want to save or budget, not what they're actually doing. So I think getting an idea of where you are with your numbers now is very important, because then you can start thinking about how to change it or whether you need to change it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the key things. In terms of foundation as well, if we're talking about investing, I think just kind of getting into a position of understanding what kind of investor you are is important. Because there's some people out there that are investing in property, and that's excellent because they know where they are, they know where their risk appetite is. Then there's some people that are trying to invest in the stocks and shares market and maybe jumping into the crypto space and all these other spaces, but they don't actually understand the risk element of what they're getting themselves into. And not understanding that can create a lot of problems. And this is where, when people start to lose money, they're like, well, what happened? Well, maybe you was in the wrong place because you wasn't supposed to be investing in that area, or you weren't supposed to be investing that amount of money in that area. So I think it's about understanding your risk profile as well. And then getting into a rhythm of investing over time and being patient with building wealth. I think there was always this idea that you should just generate wealth like that, and then turn it into generational wealth all of a sudden. Because everyone talks about generational wealth as this is like here, or as if it's in the next generation. Generational wealth is over time. So we need to be patient with ourselves a little bit as well. As much as we do want money now to cover our lifestyle and make sure that even just for the bare minimum for some of us as well, I think when we're talking about kind of growing our money, we want to be considering that it might have to take time, especially if we're talking about compound interest.
Wow. And I think that's the whole basis of generational wealth, I suppose. Generational wealth can be built and last over generations. And would you say generational wealth can be anything such as maybe passing on a business to to your children,
Yeah.
or stocks and shares,
Mhm.
or property,
Yeah.
or even crypto? Can it be almost any kind of asset class? Or
I don't even think it's just asset class. I think it can be like knowledge. I think the asset class is important because it allows for the next generation to leverage of that. I mean, I don't know what we're seeing in the news at the moment. There's a lot of talk about the royal family having generational wealth and benefiting off the back of that. I won't go into too much detail. I don't want to get in trouble. But with these individuals have managed to accumulate wealth over time that they're able to benefit off other people as well. And it means that the next generation are able to leverage off that if it's done properly. But then there's also this aspect of information. If you pass the right information down to certain people, your family members or whoever the next generation is, they might be able to use that to leverage in the space that they're in. I think sometimes if we were to go back to the farmers, I don't want to just go back to the farmers, but we're talking about them passing down a skill set, not just the asset. It's one thing to have the farm, it's another thing to be a farmer. Do you know what I mean? It's one thing to pass down the business, it's another thing to run the business.
I understand what you're saying.
You know what I mean? So I think there's twofolds with that. It's very easy to say, hey, I'm going to pass this down to my kids, I'll pass down the property. But, if they use the property to turn into just a place for everyone to chill and to party, and they don't maintain it properly, it could crumble, it could disappear, and it might not be able to hold its value if you don't have the right mindset to kind of maintain that as well.
Michael, that's so eye-opening. What you mentioned, that I didn't really think. What I've learned from this so far is generational wealth is not necessarily something tangible that you can touch or you can see. It can also be knowledge that can be passed down to generations, to children, etc. And also the fact that you have to also think ahead in terms of like who the generational wealth, who can influence that generational wealth. For example, the government with inheritance tax and things like that. I think that's just really, really incredible. And these are things that really the listeners and tech professionals should definitely be thinking about.
But people in general as well, because I think, if you think where our parents have come from, they've come to the UK to find a better life at times and build wealth. And in some cases, they haven't always been able to give us everything that they might want to have given us. But I think one thing they have given us is opportunity to grow well for ourselves. So sometimes when I speak to people, I'm like, you should really, like, we are their generational wealth a little bit, if that makes sense, because they gave us that opportunity to.
I just got that.
do you know what I mean? So
it's powerful.
Well, yeah, because the alternative might have been worse for them and for us. And you never know, because if you go back to Ghana now, it's popping. There's a lot happening. So for all we know, we could have been still there and really thriving off it. But they've made these choices, and I think one thing that they've done, which is quite interesting, is they took the risk. They took the risk to come here and try and make something of it.
Wow. This is really an eye-opener in terms of just seeing different perspectives of generational wealth. One thing I want to move to now is, okay, so if people can understand what basics, what foundations they need to have in place, and then also they want to be thinking about what kind of wealth that they want to be building, once they have set themselves up in a good place. Now let's talk about what kind of tech, what kind of platforms do people need to be thinking about in terms of building the wealth that they want to have?
Well, investments obviously is the key. A lot of the time. So having maybe a trading platform could be very powerful. There's a lot of interest in investing. People investing for themselves, building their own portfolios, people trying to get into different asset classes. So I think you know, a lot of these trading platforms could be very beneficial for them in terms of being able to visually see what their investments look like, and to learn about what their investments are doing if they're buying stocks and shares and stuff like that. And then budgeting, you know, budgeting tools as well are becoming a lot more popular. Some of the banks are even incorporating some of that in their banking apps as well. Because again, you know, a lot of this is about understanding what your situation looks like, and being in a position to you know, analyze why you are doing the certain things that you're doing. So, you know, maybe more of a technology that focuses on the psychology around people managing their finances. Chances are we'll probably see stuff like that in the future as well.
Wow. And speaking of the future, I think AI, robotics, automation, these are platforms and tools that are disrupting all industries, including for the financial services as well. Do you see AI, robotics, automation, these tools of the future that are also in the present now, do you see it as a companion to people such as yourselves or even tech professionals, or do you see it as a threat? It's
an interesting question, because I remember when AI came out and people were like, oh my days, like, it's going to take over. You know, and you know, sometimes you will question it. I think right now it's a very good asset to what we're doing, because I think people still need the human touch. You know, I was on the way here, I was speaking to the cab driver, and it's funny because he was talking about some of these councils, you know, trying to sort out some of the problems in his local area, and they've gone from having a human person to speak to just go online and put your inquiry through. People don't want to do that. People want to actually speak to somebody. They want to actually you know, have someone hold their hand through the process of how to address things. I think that's still needed in the financial advisory space. You know, for some of the younger people, they might be able to just go online and try and figure some of this stuff out. But when you have those questions, you know, sure, you can always check some of these tools, but I think sometimes you're trying to find the answer behind that question. You know, sometimes you're not really asking the right question, and I think the advisor, the financial planner, is usually in a place to, you know, get that out of you. You know, so I think it needs to be, or it is, a companion who knows what it will be in the future. But if it's going to take over what we do in the future, then everybody else needs to be careful. You know.
It's true. So that was a really good response. That was a really, really good answer, by the way.
I appreciate it, man.
So we're just going to finish off with
it's been a thought process, something I'm thinking about, you know. It's you know, these things could impact us in the future. It's hard to tell how exactly, but we've you know, it's the same thing as self-service machines in the supermarkets, isn't it? How they've taken off some of these jobs. You go into the bank now and there's no cashiers, and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, what do I do now? And let me stick that money in the cash machine. Like, you know, the world still has to keep going, isn't it? You still got to find a way to adapt to it. Otherwise, we're all, you know, what next?
True.
What next?
Oh man, that's a very interesting point there. Okay, cool. I wanna kind of like move on to, like, so right now we're in an interesting climate right now. There's so much happening. You know, Trump's been elected, and that's caused a crazy knock-on effect on, you know, the stock markets, crypto, etc. You also have potential recession in the UK at the moment. There's a lot of people leaving the UK on the back of what the government's announced in terms of the budget, taxes rising, etc. It's a very interesting climate around the world, not just in the UK. And how would you say that today's economic climate is influencing the wealth management space and advisors such as yourselves in terms of tech?
I think it might be a good opportunity right now for financial advisors to exist. because with all the changes that we're starting to see, all the announcements we're starting to see from the Labour government, for example, what it actually means now is people actually need proper financial planning.
Yeah.
People actually need to think about, if they make this decision, how it impacts their finances.
Yeah.
Because of these minute changes that have impacted their business, impacted their inheritance tax, all this kind of stuff. So, you know, now is the perfect time to be an advisor, because if you're able to speak to these people and they're willing to reach out and, you know, get the advice, they could save themselves a lot of money. But also they could make sure that they get the objectives and the goals that they're trying to achieve. And that's a lot of that is through having the conversation. So I think with everything happening, you know, that's great. You know, it's almost like when I was a broker and you was recommending a share to a client, and the timeline of that share still hadn't reached this objective, and the share price fell. And, you know, for some people, that usually meant I need to get out. But as a broker, that meant it's a perfect time to buy, because there was more of an opportunity to benefit from that investment. But we understood that, you know, at the time, because we knew there was a end result to that investment. So when these situations happen, it's more about understanding what that can mean for you, and asking the right questions, as opposed to just making these knee-jerk reactions. And those knee-jerk reactions are usually the things that force people to, you know, lose money, if they're making reactions a lot of the time out of just irrational or emotional decisions, as opposed to kind of thinking about it objectively.
True.
Yeah.
True. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been fantastic.
Glad to be here, man. It's good to see you in the flesh.
Finally.
You know.
Where can everyone find you, connect you, and if you have any announcements, please do let us know.
No, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Michael G Donkor. The G silent. No, I'm joking. And on Instagram as well. Yeah. So Mike G Donkor. TikTok also. Mike Money Mind. I think I might need to change that, but yeah, it's there. So yeah, you can find me on all these platforms. I'll be, you know, providing content as always. You know, wanting to help people grow their money, wanting to help people manage their finances, and just find a balance. You know, for me, it's all about what I would say, making wealth accessible. You know, and you know, getting people to, you know, really think about what they're actually trying to achieve with their finances.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, those that are listening or watching, you know, you need a financial planner. Mike's a guy, especially if you're in the tech industry. But yeah, there you have it, guys. Michael G Donkor, financial planner. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Just to give some housekeeping once again, for today's episode show notes, you can head over to thesoundofaccra.com/Mike Donkor. That's MikeDonkor for the tips, references, nuggets from today's episode. And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.